ages have tried to impose a false view of the world upon their followers. Good evening, everybody, and welcome to Reality Bites. Today is Saturday, August the 26th, 2023. Now, this is episode 2 of my BRICS recap. I wasn't planning on having a 4-part series about the BRICS summit in South Africa, but alas, here we are, and I stumbled upon quite a bit of new information that astounded me, to be honest, and has led me to have to break this up into a 4-part series because it would be about 4 hours long. So this episode, the last episode, I touched base on the history of the current financial system. So that was the Bretton Woods Agreement, the IMF, the World Bank, the collapse of the Bretton Woods Agreement, the introduction of the petrodollar, and how that caused animosity, strife, and resentment and hatred towards the West, and especially the United States being the world reserve currency because of how they were treating countries, especially poor countries, keeping them in a debt trap and imposing sanctions and weaponizing their currency to keep poor nations pretty much poor. And the World Bank and the IMF were lauding themselves to be these beacons of philanthropy and wanting to help third world countries get out of poverty, but they never did that in the whole time that the IMF and the World Bank existed. They just exploited all their resources and kept them poor. Okay, so that's just a recap of episode 1. And at the end of episode 1, I went on to the BRICS website, and I came across in their goals and priorities something very astounding that was really surprising to me, and that was this. Okay, so we had here under themes and priorities on the BRICS website, if you see on the 4th picture here, it's the sustainable development goals, sorry. And that is pushed by the UN and the World Economic Forum. Okay, so let's kind of recap what they say about that. And then we will dive into what Agenda 21 was, what Agenda 2030 is, and how it ties into the New World Order. And it's not good. Well, it's not good what they want to do, but we have to believe that as a people, we will overcome their tyranny, okay? And you have to keep in mind here that, in our current society, like in Canada and the United States, and I'm sure in other countries all around the world, we are coming to realize that perhaps there's a uniparty, right? So the Republicans and the Democrats are two sides of the same coin. There's the deep state. It's all the same. They are all pushing. They all work for the same people. They're just puppets, and there are a small minority of people that pull the strings, and that could be said the same here in Canada. Okay, so we have Justin Trudeau, the Liberal leader, and we have Pierre Poilievre. Questionably, perhaps might be a WEF young leader, okay, groomed by them as well. Like, this is what we're seeing, that all of the leaders all around the world seem, I think Vladimir Putin was even a young world leader in the World Economic Forum. And that's kind of where I'm going here, is that, if you read 1984, they've always had a manufactured enemy, okay, controlled opposition, you could say. but they all play the part in the same game. Okay, so let's look at it in a macro sense here instead of in a country. So we have a uniparty, or two sides of the same coin, playing their roles, with liberal and conservative, or Republican and Democrat. But we could also assume or speculate or look at the information and make a hypothesis, an educated statement or guess that this is happening on a global scale as well. The elite would have us think that there are good and bad, there are two sides. But especially recently, have our leaders actually proven that they have our backs, or that they are pushing agendas that do not have our best interest in mind? Only the interest of the elites and lining their pockets. Like the Ukraine money laundering situation. Like the United States ruining their economy, Canada ruining their economy, printing money, spending money, bringing in illegal, like bringing massive immigration. Okay, destabilizing our economy on purpose. And who's to say that with this new BRICS, perhaps the dethroning of the American dollar as the world reserve currency, maybe Biden and everyone at the top, they are all part of this. Like I showed in my first presentation, world reserve currencies only last around 85 to 100 years, and this is a cycle. Okay, so it's about due time. And when you have fractional reserve banking, and you're printing money, and you have a debt-based economy, this is not sustainable, right? And the relationship with the rest of the world that the United States has, they've had it too. So like it's really complicated of how all the other countries are integrated. So just bear with me. I'm just telling you what I have found in the last few days, and it's just very surprising. So let's go through it together. Let's process it together. And so I found a lot of interesting websites with information about Agenda 2030 and Agenda 21 and the World Economic Forum and the Great Reset. And I will be reading a lot of stuff here, because it's what I found. And then so there are also a lot of other resources that I won't read, but I will put all the websites in the description box below, so you guys can take a look at it as well, because this is very interesting, and I think we need to share this, and we need to expose that we cannot find external saviors. So like everyone is saying that, oh my gosh, BRICS is going to be like a good reset. It's going to be a level playing field in all the countries. Like, are we that naive to think that after the last 3 years that the governments have our best interest in mind? It's just they're just rebranding. They're rebranding the elite. They're rebranding their structure because the old system is collapsing. They already have a new system. And it's just a rebranding. It's the same shit. Okay? Same shit, different face. Okay? So we need to stop putting faith and wanting to have external saviors. We need to save ourselves. And we need to have the balls to do that. Okay? So that being said, like I even was on Twitter today posting about, how BRICS nation, like I was on a gentleman's Sprinter, I think is a journalist or something, and he put something about BRICS and stuff, and then I put that they're pushing the Sustainable Development Goals, and people were like, those aren't the same goals. They're different. And then they were trying to find me. And this one guy was trying to like pretty much say I'm a racist because I'm saying that. And I'm like, I put the website, and some people were really receptive to it being on the website right in our face. And some, despite me providing that evidence, continue to pursue their attack on me. Anyways, that's another story. So let's dive in to what I'm going to talk about. So we have here, just for a recap, one of their goals and priorities is strengthening post-pandemic socio-economic recovery and the attainment of the 2030 Agenda on Sustainable Development. Okay. Solutions need to be found for accelerating the implementation of the 2030 Agenda. Equity, fairness, and a recognition of common but differentiated responsibilities and respective capacities should underlie the response. Now, we're going to go through all of the goals. I found a nice little article. Excuse me, I just need to pour more. I found a nice little article that kind of dissected it and each goal and tells us what they really mean from a Great Reset perspective. Okay, so this is just a summary. What's this? Okay, so this is, let me just do that a little bit. Okay, so Agenda 21 was made, it was developed, I believe, in 1992. So this stuff has been going on for quite a long time. And before that, I'm sure there was other ones, like the World Economic Forum was started in the 70s, right? And before that, Klaus Schwab was groomed into a society as well. These are all secret societies. And I'm sorry, I wasn't planning on getting into all this stuff for the BRICS Summit, but it's here, so I have to. Okay, so Agenda 21 is a comprehensive plan of action to be taken globally, nationally, and locally by organizations of the United Nations system, governments, and major groups in every area in which human impacts on the environment. So, the main thing we need to keep in mind when we are going through all of this information today is that Agenda 21, Agenda 2030, and the World Economic Forum, and the Sustainable Development Goals, this is all communism trying to be ushered in via the guise of climate change and climate crisis. Okay? This is how they're going to do it. And crises in general, like COVID. Right? Now, I think that's all I'm going to read from here. I'm going to add the next the next page, obviously, in the description box. So this is a 351 page document here, but this is this is Agenda 21. This is the whole Agenda 21. I will provide it in the description box below so you can read it if you like. So what it goes over, let's just look at sections here. So it goes over social and economic dimensions, okay? Conservation and management of resources for development. Now, everything is hidden in very fluffy and professional sounding words that sound great, but they are smokescreens, okay? Strengthening the role of major groups, means of implementation, so how they're going to do that. Okay, so it's a very long document, but I think we should start getting educated as to what their freaking plans are here. Okay. So these are the 17 goals. I kind of touched on them yesterday. So this is from the United Nations website. Okay, so, you know, some of the comments I was getting on the Twitter arguments, or like what they were, was that some people were like, no, that's what NATO and the UN want to do, and the United States and the West. They're doing the Sustainable Development Goals. BRICS is doing the Belt and Road Initiative. Like, well, first of all, those are two different things. Or they're just focusing on trade and economics. And I'm like, no, go to the website and look. And they're like, oh my God, thank you. Except for that one guy. But yeah, like no one's covering this. And it's in our face. The last article that I will go through with you was written today, and I was just like taking a break from doing some housework, and I was on Twitter and I saw it in my feed, and he's pretty much talking exactly about what I'm talking about, and I haven't seen anybody else talk about how they're pushing the same fucking thing. This is how they're going to get their one world government. Okay? It's crazy. Okay, so these are all of the goals, right? So, and we're familiar with the this little circle here. Okay, that is the like logo of the Sustainable Development Goals. And people wear their like a lot of politicians will wear pins on their chest, lapel pins. So we have our lovely Prime Minister Justin Trudeau with this guy. I don't want to say it on YouTube in case I get banned or something. But this is this guy and his son, okay? That's like this is the big daddy right there on the left. And then that's his son on the right. Or that's my right and my left, so I don't know how it looks on camera. And then Justin Trudeau has that little lapel here. And then we have Boris Johnson here wearing it. I'm not quite sure. I think he's the leader of the UN. Bill Gates. We'll talk. Oops, I shouldn't have like said it. I don't care. And Mr. Oh my God, his name is I forget his name, but he is the leader of France, the president of France. So let's keep going. And you see the Great Resets right in the middle. His name is off my tongue. Okay, so this is the lovely article that I found that kind of goes through all the goals and translates them into New World Order speak. Okay, here we go. Goal number 1 of the Sustainable Development Goals is to end poverty in all its forms everywhere. Like, what a statement, right? The only answer that the plan offers for eliminating poverty is redistribution of wealth. What does that remind you of? Marxism, right? The document calls for equal rights to economic resources, so like equity, right? That means government is claiming an absolute power to take away anything that belongs to you to give it to whomever it deems more deserving. That is government-sanctioned theft. There are only band-aids that solve nothing. Tomorrow, those on the breadlines will need more. There is not a single idea in these plans to give the poor a way to earn their own wealth so they no longer need government to hand out handouts. So, like give a man a fish he can eat for a day, teach a man to fish he can eat for a lifetime, right? But this is the government wanting you to be reliant and dependent on it, right? The final result, a never-ending cycle of poverty that will consume the middle class. Goal number 2, end hunger, achieve food security, and improve nutrition and promote sustainable agriculture. Improve nutrition? What do they have in marketplaces and supermarkets? Like sugar, and it's all like impulse placed in impulsive when you're like in line, so you can impulse buy. Sorry, I'm not feeling the best right now, so sorry if I'm a little scattered. But here we go. End hunger, achieve food security, and improve nutrition and promote sustainable agriculture. UN documents go into great detail on controlling food supplies. They detail enforcing sustainable farming tactics, which we'll be getting into a little bit later with the Netherlands, okay, and in Canada here as well, which have been proven to force up the cost of food production while decreasing yield. It is basically the old Soviet practice of farm control that turned the breadbasket of the world into non-productive wasteland. So that was the Holodomor in Ukraine. My family got killed in that. I'm from Ukraine. So the document details the use of government-controlled seed and plant banks to ensure access to and fair and equitable sharing of benefits arising from the utilization of genetic resources and associated traditional knowledge as internationally agreed. So in other words, our future food sources will be put into the hands of politically connected bureaucrats who have never been on a farm. Starvation on a massive scale will trim the population to more sustainable levels, which is what they want, right? We all know this. We all know this. Goal 3, ensure healthy lives and promote well-being at all ages. This means from the cradle to the grave, they will control how and where we live and what we are permitted to eat. The healthy lives they promote means basically forcing us out of our cars and into walking and riding bikes as we are relocated into controlled high-rise apartment buildings sanctioned by the government. Now, Chris Sky, I saw him say something recently on Twitter. He's in the States doing a little tour. But he was touching base on something really interesting, that there are high-rises in Toronto the upper floors are all condos. They're all obviously small and high priced, but the mid floors and the bottom floors are all supermarkets, Starbucks, shopping, clothes, everything. So everything you need is in your building. There's obviously no infrastructure for parking, and it's all in the downtown core. Right? So, urban planning wise, you would think that there would be so much congestion with this, but you don't have to even leave your building, and people have been kind of trained now to work from home. So they're kind of getting us used to being in this perpetual lockdown where we don't, and the jail, where our houses are jail and we don't leave our buildings because everything we have is so conveniently within our reach, right? The 15-minute cities. Okay. Meat will be out of the question, as raising herds is not considered to be sustainable because they fart too much. But don't worry, Obamacare for All will deal with the predictable decline in health that is sure to follow. And we all know how government-run, socialized healthcare is. Ensure inclusive and equitable quality of education and promote lifelong learning opportunities for all. We all have long known that lifelong learning is the means to continually apply behavior modification practices to assure we maintain the desired attitudes and values and beliefs to live in the global village. So they're going to indoctrinate us. Look what's happening in the schools with the gender stuff right now and the climate stuff. Achieve gender equality and empower all women and girls. The rainbow flag flies as we ignore Sharia law and the war on women. I like that one. And the trans stuff. Goal number 6, ensure availability and sustainability management of water and sanitation. Okay. Ask California how sustainable water control is working for them, as these policies have torn down water systems and dams to free the rivers. The original pioneers found the land to be a desert. They built a sophisticated water control system that resulted in an emerald green paradise. Now sustainable policies are being enforced, and they're witnessing the return of deserts. Destroying productive land. Meanwhile, across the nation, EPA is moving to take control of all the water in the United States. Control the water, control the population. Goal number 7, ensure access to affordable, reliable, sustainable, and modern energy for all. Sounds wonderful, right? Seriously, their solution is to ban oil and enforce wind and solar power. Okay, solar panels are crazy bad for the environment. They just dump them and they don't decompose. They are horrible for the environment when they are discarded. Some report health problems related to life under the turbines. Moreover, the carnage of the birds and bats that are being chopped up and fried by these sustainable energy practices goes against everything environmentalists told about us. So even vegan eating, a lot more animals die by, turning the crop, the fields, insects, bugs, birds, than killing a cow for your meat. Goal number 8, promote sustained, inclusive, and sustainable economic growth, full and productive employment, and decent work for all. One thing our 23 years of Agenda 1 have proven is that there's no economic growth. European nations that implemented sustainable energy and water control guidelines are now dumping these programs as fast as they can. to save their economies, right? They're going back to coal. So I'm just going to say, like, this video might get a little long, so, but it has a lot of good information in it. So if you have to pause it and come back to it, please do that, because this is like probably the most important video out of all four. And then maybe the fourth one too. But I will have these articles as well if you want to read them in the description box. Goal number 9 is build resilient infrastructure, promote inclusive and sustainable industrialization, and foster innovation. Sustainable industrialization means destroyed industry. No real industry can remain in business under a government-managed economy with its shifting rules and constant increases in taxes. Government doesn't create industry or prosperity. Our government's real job is to provide protection of the marketplace so real innovators are free to create new ideas, industries, and opportunities. Government itself is a job killer when it gets in the way. This is what's just happening with crypto in the United States with the SEC. Okay. Goal number 10 is reduce inequality within among countries. This is another form of redistribution of wealth that forces industries from the first world to third world nations. By using oppressive sustainable policies to drive up production costs, companies are forced to take their factories to the poorer nations. The second trick is to exempt these poorer nations from the very environmental rules and the regulations that cause the factories to move in the first place. So rules for me and not for thee, right? So rules for our country, but not for the third world country where our companies are being sent to. Can anyone explain how this helps the environment? It does not. It simply makes everyone equally poor. This is also an assault on national sovereignty. Goal number 11, make cities and human settlements inclusive, safe, resilient, and sustainable. This is what is known as smart growth, which promises a utopia of families and neighbors playing and working together, riding bikes, walking to work, and stress-free communities. Well, that's not what it is, unfortunately. It really means the end of private property rights. Single-family homes stack and pack high-rises where residents are overtaxed, overregulated, rents are high, and individual thoughts and actions are viewed as a threat to the well-ordered society. And by the way, the American Planning Association did a study to see if their smart growth plans worked, and their own report concluded that smart growth does not work. Okay. Now, goal number 12, ensure sustainable consumption and production patterns. What more is there to say? Control from the top down. Goal number 13, take urgent action to combat climate change and its impacts. This is the diamond in the rough, okay? The root of the plan is this: climate change. How many scientific reports do real scientists have to present to show this is the greatest scam ever devised to create a reason for government control? That's what I was saying in the beginning. This whole thing is communism being ushered in under the guise of climate change. Global warming scaremongers will tell you their true purpose in their own words. No matter if the science of global warming is all phony, climate change provides the greatest opportunity to bring about justice and equality in the world. That was Christine Stewart, former Canadian Minister of the Environment. Okay. Goal number 14, conserve and sustainably use the oceans, seas, and marine resources for sustainable development. Control the water, control the population. This one is really aimed at destroying the oil industry in order to enforce wind and solar power. This is the UN pounding its chest to become the central global government, as it always sought to be, the one world government. It has no more right to the seas than it does to the air we breathe or the surface of the moon. Goal number 15, protect, restore, promote sustainable use of terrestrial ecosystems, sustainably manage forests, combat desertification, and halt and reserve land degradation, and halt biodiversity loss. Have you been watching the news as the greatest fires in history are destroying millions of acres of forests? This is happening in Canada, this is happening in Maui, this is happening in Spain, this is happening in Greece, this is happening everywhere. Why is this happening? Because of sustainable forest management that refuses to allow the removal of dead trees from the forest floor. This creates a density of combustible material to fuel massively hot and unmanageable fires. If you want to save a forest, send an environmentalist back to his high-rise in New York City where he belongs. Goal number 16, we're almost done. with this one. Promote peaceful and inclusive societies for sustainable development, provide access to justice for all, and build effective, accountable, inclusive institutions at all levels. This is social justice, which really means social engineering. Have you ever once witnessed an effective or accountable institution come out of the United Nations? By its very nature, the United Nations is unaccountable. Who would be the entity to oversee that accountability? Every one of these programs outlined in the 2030 Agenda creates money, it creates power, it creates unaccountability at every level of government. This is why the government is now running out of control and people are feeling so hopeless in trying to deal with their governments. Goal 16 should be named the foxes running the hen house goal. And last but not least, goal number 17, strengthen the means of implementation and revitalize the global partnership for sustainable development. This means reboot Agenda of Agenda 21 because that was the original global partnership. This goal is a call for all the treaties, plans, and schemes devised in the massive UN meetings to be made the law of the globe, the new world order. It is total global government and it's a sure highway to misery, destruction of human society, individual thought, motivation, and dreams. Okay? Now the power elite, which prey on the poor and helpless, are determined to finish the job. They are fast moving toward the goal of eliminating individual nation states, controlling individual actions, and wiping private property ownership from the face of the earth. Their goal is to make us all equal in the same chains to assure none of us can disrupt their well-ordered utopian nightmare. Okay? We need to share all of this information. Let's move on. Okay, so the Great Food Reset has begun. Now, I'm not reading this whole thing. I have some things here that I have flagged. So let me just make that a little bit bigger. Okay. So, there we go. Right. So let's see here. So this is talking about the food crisis and the food reset and the farming reset. Okay, this is how they're going to control the food, control the water, control the food, control the population. Okay, this is about the nitrogen bans in the Netherlands that they're trying to push, how they're trying to usurp farmland from generational farmers, and the culling of livestock to curb CO2 emissions and to create more sustainable farming. Okay, this is ridiculous. Okay, so let's see if I can find what I'm looking for. Okay, so here we are. Farmers also point out that the consequences of the nitrogen cut would extend well beyond the Netherlands. The country, after all, is Europe's largest exporter of meat and the second largest agricultural exporter in the world, just behind the United States. In other words, the plan would cause food exports to collapse at a time when the world is already facing a food and resource shortage. We already know that what this might look like. A similar ban on nitrogen fertilizer was conducted in Sri Lanka last year with disastrous consequences. It caused an artificial food shortage that plunged nearly 2 million Sri Lankans into poverty, leading to an uprising that toppled the government. I don't think they expected that. Okay. Now we're going to look for another one here. The struggle playing out in the Netherlands would seem to be part of a much bigger game that seeks to reset the international food system. Similar measures are currently being introduced or considered in several other European countries, including Belgium, Germany, Ireland, and Britain, where the government is encouraging traditional farmers to leave the industry to free up land for new sustainable farmers. As the second largest contributor to greenhouse gas emissions after the energy sector, agriculture has naturally ended up in the crosshairs of net zero advocates. That is, virtually all major international and global organizations. The solution, we are told, is sustainable agriculture, one of the UN's 17 Sustainable Development Goals. What would you know about that? Okay, and number 3 is this one. So this family here, I'm not going to say the name, but that family's foundation has very close ties to the WEF, which is itself encouraging farmers to embrace climate smart methods in order to make the transition to net zero nature positive food systems by 2030. The WEF is also a big believer in the need to drastically reduce cattle farming and meat consumption and switch to alternative proteins like bugs. So this is what BRICS is planning to do, right? So this is what BRICS is pushing. They are on board with this. It is on their website. They are aligned with this. Okay? This is going to be the new world order. Now, I'm not going to read this one. I just wanted you to see here, like if you look at the top left corner, what does it say here? What does it say right here? It starts with open. Open Society Foundation. Okay, so they are also, he is pushing this. He is highlighting that it is a good thing and that we need to work harder to usher it in. Okay, so what does that mean? What do you guys think? This guy is apparently not allowed in Russia. It's all optics. This is all a freaking movie. Okay? All right. So, let's see here where we get. Okay, the United Nations has decided that governments will have absolute authority over all resources and demands that we all reduce consumption and move towards living in crowded cities under strict government control with less personal freedom and no private property rights. It is a call for central planning of the economy and society via control over energy use, education, transportation, and production of food. Agenda 21 would place every person on earth under the watchful eye of unseen ruling body. And you know who, the WHO, right? The World Health Organization wants to be like the world governing body too now. That thinks it knows what's best for us and what we do with our lives. So some of the things Agenda 21, which is obviously 2030 rebranded, okay, as Agenda 21 advocates the depopulation of rural areas in favor of cities. It also advocates that people have fewer children or none at all, especially those who live in rural areas. In order to save endangered species, Agenda 21 advocates taking away private property rights as well as limiting consumption and production via taxes and fees on things like gasoline, what we see in Canada, etc. It promotes social justice, economic equality, and solidarism. It suggests at various points that nations should eliminate or drastically reduce automobile use and replace it with public transportation or 15-minute cities where you can walk wherever you need to go. Agenda 21 also seeks to eliminate or phase out domestic air travel, or give you a stipulation of a ration, you could say. It's dark in here. Yeah, it's dark. Sorry. I was busy during the day. I need to get a light. All right, so let's move on. We're almost done. Okay, so what do we see at the top? So this is being pushed by our lovely friends at where? Where? Whoops. There, right there. The World Economic Forum. Okay? Yes, I accept. Agenda 30. Okay? They're being pushed to. This is from April of this year. Now, I found this interesting. It says here, this was the guy that I was commenting on earlier. I get a lot of good news for geopolitics from him. So, but I like this, and it was kind of interesting that this guy gets it, right? So Javier Milei, Argentina's far-right ultra-libertarian presidential candidate, criticized Argentina's entry into the BRICS, saying, "I will not ally with those communists." I like that. He knows what's going on. Yeah, just as we end here, I just wanted to show you this here. So, the red here is, so this is how, the New World Order is going to spread. And in another video, I will show you, they are even saying that Western countries can join, but they can't put sanctions on anybody or anything. I'll touch base on it in my other video, but let's just see. So the new members are in the teal color. And then there's a lot more other countries that applied than these yellow ones here, but there's like 50. Okay, so this is the article that I came across today. It was written today. And it says, this is a great guide. I don't know if it's a guide, but Geopolitics Empire. BRICS. BRICS has not deviated one iota from the general plan of establishing the New World Order prophesied by the globalists, and in the functions of an undeclared world government, it has taken over the UN in its entirety. So let's read this, and then we'll be done for the day. I'm thirsty. So as you can see here, let me just make it a little bit bigger. This was written here today on August 26, 2023. So I was already touching base on this yesterday. I haven't heard anybody else talk about it. So BRICS Summit, the last nail in the multipolarities coffin. I have to go back to my previous article dedicated to this same event. Does BRICS threat the globalist agenda? Because I missed a striking detail that actually represents the key of understanding the state conglomerate seen by some as guarantee for a bright and non-imperialistic future. That's what people are thinking, that this is going to be just like a great thing. Everyone's going to be equal, right? Is that human nature though? No, it's not. Can we learn from history, please? In which nations will be in a continuous state of jubilation, cooperation, and prosperity, right? That would be great if it could happen, but that would never happen. Material, of course, because this paradigm is not only dominant, but the only one valid at present. It is known that you best hide one thing when you place it on the most visible place. That is exactly what happened at the international meeting for at least me. Thanks again to my friend Jesse Zurawell of TNT Radio, New York, for warning me on this issue. So to understand the essence of this rather amorphous and eclectic organization, it was enough to note the name of the event in Johannesburg, South Africa, August 22nd to 24th. The theme of the session is BRICS in Africa, Partnership for Mutual Accelerated Growth, Sustainable Development, and Inclusive Multilateralism. As we see, the 2030 Agenda for Sustainable Development is the core mission of this group of countries. The strategy of resetting the world in the interest of the globalist elite, which floated from the elaborations of Club of Rome and the official documents of the Earth Summit in Rio de Janeiro 1992, finding its continuation in another UN event that took place in the same South African city 2 decades ago. I'm quoting from the official UN website. The full implementation of Agenda 21, the program for further implementation of Agenda 21, and the commitments to the Rio Principles were strongly reaffirmed at the World Summit on Sustainable Development, held in Johannesburg, South Africa from 26 August to 4th September 2022. Finally, there was the UN General Assembly in 2015, which refreshed the globalist strategy of imposing a single direction on all countries of the world, known colloquially as the 2030 UN Agenda. All of these tedious things I have invoked above are well known to an informed public, but I mentioned them here only to show that BRICS has not deviated one iota from the general plan of establishing a new world order. Prophesied by the globalists, and in the functions of an undeclared world government, it has taken over the UN and in its entirety. So what remains of the pretension of a new architecture of international relations? What is the major geopolitical rupture achieved by BRICS? And what can any cosmetic changes in the international system mean if the game is led by the same private globalist entities that control the UN? The rule of arithmetic teaches us that changing the place of terms does not change the result. At the same premise as and the same premises lead to the same results, especially when the driving force remains the same. It is worth remembering that the very idea of creating this conglomerate of states with the acronym BRICS did not come from within any of them, but it is the work of the transnational megacorporation Goldman Sachs. I touched upon that yesterday. One of the key players in the world of financial sharks. I will also note that Goldman Sachs is one of the key owners of the Fed, which understood at some point that this group of countries could represent a huge opportunity for investments. The very intention to launch a possible new currency that would replace the dollar in trade between BRICS countries, even if it would be a danger to American dominance, would not necessarily endanger the world plutocracy. So they are not going to be affected by it. The elite, the plutocrats, what do they care what's the global reserve currency? Does Joe Biden have the best interest of the United States? No. Does Justin Trudeau care about me? No. So they don't care if they run us into the ground. Such a currency could be worth something if, unlike the dollar, would be convertible into gold. And the world's #1 gold controller is still the Rothschild clan. Okay? World kleptocracy is par excellence stateless, and throughout the history of capitalism, it has successfully migrated from Italian cities to the Netherlands, then to the United Kingdom, and after World War II to the United States. So what would make us believe that these extraterrestrial entities could not with the same success towards China and other BRICS countries? We will not insist on who instigated the 2 world wars and who took advantage of them. We will not even remember who was at the origin of the League of Nations after World War I and after World War II produced the United Nations. But it is good not to miss the role of the eternal philanthropists of the Rockefeller clan in creating and supporting the UN. JDR Jr.'s deep interest in the international relations was reflected by his many contributions to international causes. Perhaps most outstanding was his gift of $8.5 million in December 1946 for the purchase of land for the permanent home of the United Nations in Manhattan. So this guy bought the building for the United Nations. And he also given the library building in Geneva to the League of Nations. And if we know these historical truths that reshaped the world in the 20th century, why not admit that in the 21st century, while World War III is in its hybrid form, is underway, wouldn't be the same globalist elite to the same maneuver preparing the UN reform? UN Secretary General Guterres pointed out in his speech at the BRICS summit a few days ago that this idea is bait for the public. Now let's focus a little on two terms present in the name of the BRICS summit in Johannesburg, namely inclusive multilateralism. The term inclusive has recently been promoted by leaders of corporate capitalism, along with notions such as public-private partnership, as an expression of the definitive subordination of states to the private interest of money masters who are preparing to be masters of the world. This so-called Inclusive Capitalism Council was created on December 8th, 2020. He brings together all the major gangsters of big money who launched themselves using Pope Francis as a brand. This Pope is a faithful servant of the globalist elite, supporting both the LGBT agenda and the myth of global warming, and other initiatives of corporate capitalism. The true leaders of this international mafia who have subordinated all states and all international organizations do not even hide too much. Please applaud VIP #1 of this fantastic initiative to make humanity happy, Madame Lynn Forster de Rothschild. I don't even care anymore. Okay, now let's go back to the term multilateralism. I will not delve into the subject of various schools in the field of international relations. Kissinger did it for all in his time. I'm just sending you to the Wikipedia page on this topic, quoting a single sentence from this source. International organizations such as the UN and the World Organizations are multilateral in nature. Sounds good, but is functioning badly. Those who are able to capture the big picture know that behind the persons like Guterres are the real players, and the treacherous and soft imposition of an agenda common to all states such as organizations is a verified technique of globalists. Therefore, given the circumstances invoked above, I emphasize again that the BRICS is not an alternative to the global governance of globalists, but an integral part of it. There we go. And the existence of major rivalries, even the wars between the various groups of states, does not contradict all their common agenda drawn from the above through the UN or the WHO. On the contrary, these divisions and conflicts serve as an excellent smokescreen, what did I say earlier, for advancing the globalist strategy. Okay. I will leave all of these websites and some other ones that I didn't touch on because it would have been too long in the like description box below. I hope that this wasn't too dry. This is very interesting, and we think we're moving into a different, better world. It's just the same. It's the same. It's a different face. They are rebranding. I think we're all dumb. They think we're all stupid. Okay. So stay tuned please share this. I think everyone needs to know about it. And stay tuned for my next video. I will be covering some of the speeches and stuff that the leaders of the BRICS nations covered. They had mentioned that they weren't going to talk about de-dollarization, and they did. So we'll cover that. And then episode number 4 will be about the new monetary system. And that will be really interesting. Okay? So, that being said, thank you so much for watching, and please subscribe to my channel if you like it, and like my video too, please. And thank you. Have a great night, and remember, we can come together as a people and do not lose hope. Okay? Have a good night.